What up, everybody? It's Terminal back with another patch notes rundown. We finally get two objectives in Deadlock. On top of that, there's a slew of other changes involving boons as well as rewards. So let's get right into it. The King of the Hill has been renamed to Unstable Rift. What this means is that there is no longer an earned delivery to start it, and that now it spawns on a random side of the map with a start time variation of plus or minus 1 minute. And on top of that, the reward has changed so that on top of the souls, it spawns troopers that are substantially stronger than baseline troopers, which will push down the lane with you. What this means is that if you have a decisive victory, you're pretty much guaranteed to get an objective out of it. And also, it's a pretty big buff to Heroic Aura. What people don't know is that Heroic Aura grants twice the effect to minions. So that means that they're going to be zooming down the lane, and 52% fire rate on top of the 100% damage growth means that they're going to be dealing triple damage. And each iteration, they actually get a bit stronger. So it's going to be more than that down the line. However, the urn is not gone. The urn is now changed to an objective that is much more focused. Pretty much, the urn carrier itself is the only one that gets the souls. However, the souls can be denied, and if your ally confirms them, the souls are split between you and the person who deposited it. The urn carrier also gets the stat buffs, which is good. And something to note is that they are no longer locked out of doing everything. You still can't cast movement stuff, as far as I can tell, or rather, you can't cast like egregious movement things, such as right here, like doorway or mirage teleport. Something else to note is that the way that the bounty works is that you cannot drop this urn, and after 45 seconds, it starts to drain. Pretty much meaning that stalling the urn means that you're going to get less on the drop off. Moving on, the boon reward table has changed. Flashbang alert. What this means to you is nothing. What matters? 9k more souls to hit max boons. Your ult is coming 200 souls later, and the halfway point is 4,000 souls sooner. This buffs early game heroes and is a nerf to heroes that need all their APs. Gun heroes are an interesting spot because they have really efficient items, and getting to that halfway point of your boon scaling sooner is going to be really relevant. However, there's a change a bit further on that might not make it seem as important. I think that this is going to be about a net neutral for gun heroes, mainly targeting heroes like Pocket, who really like all of their APs. Also, 5% health per boon reduction. What this means is that Mo is getting 3.4 less HP per boon, Muna gets 1.5 less. When you take into account the fact that there's vitality invests and all this stuff, late game Mo is going to be somewhere around the lines of like 225 less health, Mina is going to be around 75 less health, everybody else falls somewhere in between. Tanky heroes are going to be a little bit less tanky, and squishy heroes are going to be a bit more squishier. It's not a massive change, but this is relevant, especially when you can like put it side by side with the AP changes. So we'll see how it goes. Ultimate cooldowns are increased. Sure, some heroes this matters more on than others. A number of heroes will already sit on their cooldowns. You're not just going to be spamming Dynamo Ult off cooldown, although, it probably is like optimal to be in position at the time, but regardless, in practice, this just slows things down a little bit. The fact that up here the Rift spawn time has increased a bit would normally be like, oh, well, now that it's 7 minutes, this doesn't matter as much because now we also have the urn interval changing. So instead of having your cooldowns up for every objective, now you might want to pick and choose. So maybe this matters more than before. We'll see. Rejuve buff duration. This is pretty big in that having a minute less to farm before you actually like make your push means that if you're behind and you get the rejuve, it's a lot less powerful. It also means that when you're ahead and you get the rejuve, you have a bit more time pressure on yourself to actually do something with it. Slightly longer death timers. This means that games might end slightly faster, but at the same time, bounties from pretty much everything has been reduced. Sinners aren't, or camps in general aren't, but we'll see exactly how the pacing changes. Like I mentioned earlier, the fact that we have like 2 staggered objectives, we might end up in a case where this quote unquote like slower pace from the souls is accelerated just due to more fighting and things. Uh, this might be a bit more hectic than we're used to, even though people have less souls as a whole. Uh, Again, this is another buff to early game heroes alongside the reworked boon table, because if you have less souls, you're not going to be scaling up to getting multiple 6Ks as fast. Dash jump buffed, pretty much everybody's going to be bumping their head. This is nice. I think that this is the most accessible form of movement, and having more players having better movement is good for the game. It makes them feel better. All the advanced forms and things will come with time. Also, jump pads on the double center buildings have been removed. This is great. Remove them all. Like, bounce pads have just been a mistake to rotations, changes the pacing of the game horribly. Like, wall jumps are fun and you can't really remove them. Bounce pads you can. Also, hovering an item in the shop now shows the investment. It feels a little weird. I think it could be refined further, but this is great. Now onto the item changes. Mystic Shot, slight slap on the wrist. Toxic Bullets is already a good item in the situations that it's good on the heroes that it's good on. I don't think that this pushes that over the threshold. Scourge is in a weird spot in that it's been bought a lot lately. It's been strong for a long time. However, I don't think that it's good as a selfish item. The fact that you can put it on somebody else means that people that can put it on you and apply debuffs or have it be massive, such as Vin or Rem, it's going to be way more valuable than having it on yourself. When, say, you could be buying plated armor, or you could be buying Colossus, or all these other things, and just have somebody else put Scourge on you and be just as effective. So this change just supports that. It's nerfed across the board until 163 Spirit. Most heroes aren't going to be hitting it that are buying this. Calico probably does. Abrams might be. Maybe like certain Billy builds or whatever. But in general, it's like, oh, now this is good on Kelvin. Now this is good on Vindictas that are going, the overflow and all that. Rem gets himself a ton of spirit. This just makes it more of a support item. Something to note, something funny you can do with Rem, especially with a Vindicta. Vindicta can place Scourge on Rem, and then Rem can attach to somebody and put Scourge on the person they're attached to. And now you have 2 Scourges that are massive. Hooray! You usually can't stack Scourge on the same person, but the fact that it's on Rem and Rem is attached to the person, it's a little cheesy, but it's great. Cursed Relic damage. This is borderline meaningless for the situations where you need this item. Like, if you're cursing a Victor, and that Victor is dying because you cursed them, that's great. However, this is going to hurt Haze, who is like popping up out of the shadows and cursing you, and you can't press Metal Skin and you die. How much is it going to hurt her? Probably not enough, but it's a step. I think Curse needs more of a downside. I don't know what that could be off the top of my head, but if they want the damage dealers to not build it, it can't just be a damage reduction, because the reason that they're getting it is more of a systematic issue, right? Like, Haze can't kill you because Metal Skin exists, so she has to buy Curse. Like, there's a middle ground somewhere here, and it's very nuanced, and I don't know what that is. But they should probably work towards that rather than just, like, making it 30% damage reduction eventually. Moving on to the hero changes. Abrams getting toned down here is interesting, because I don't think that these changes are, like, massive nerfs, but they are meaningful nerfs. When you nerf the base radius of something, that means that it nerfs the radius, or like it nerfs the item range increases substantially. And by nerfing his 1, it means that you're going to be healing slightly less, but you're running into people. Like, it's less incidental healing. So it's something that I'm really going to have to see in game what this looks like. but I assume that this is going to be a relatively minor nerf, and that he's still going to be like a massive meatball. These Apollo changes are interesting. I think that a lot of the early game changes that we saw earlier are favored to Apollo, and Apollo falls off late. Uh, since late game scalers are getting weaker, Apollo should be getting stronger. But these changes themselves aren't like anything massive. It's mostly quality of life on a riposte, which is good quality of life. And then this healing is like pretty big. Alt is, if it was gonna kill you, it's probably gonna kill you. Like this matters, but like you're not getting the tier 3 alt until pretty late on a lot of these builds now because of the change to the AP with the whatever his one is called. But this heal right here, like it's meaningful. There's a lot of heal cut in the game though, so how meaningful is this? Like late game? I don't know. This doesn't really fix any of the issues that the hero has. I think if anything, Apollo might be just incredibly oppressive early and then fall off a cliff even harder. Let's see. Billy is getting hit on his damage on his gun as well as on his bash down and on the Rising Ram. Rising Ram breaks even at 111 Spirit with the 5 AP, which I don't know how often those builds get there with a standard, but it should be easy enough to integrate something to get there if you care enough about it. I think what matters a lot more is he has had his gun nerfed many times now. The fact that Billy went from having one of the best guns into the game to having just like a pretty good gun is kind of crazy. Because he had received buff after buff after buff, and he's pretty strong. But I don't know how I feel about constantly nerfing his gun. I think that we've kind of progressively nerfed guns across the board, and the numbers are getting lower and lower. And I'm not like a gun fan, but I also don't want to see them be entirely useless, and I kind of worry with this trajectory what they look like in 2 years from now. Pretty much, Billy's going to be doing less damage, and he's probably going to be a lot more fair. Celeste is getting buffed, but the buffs aren't targeting her lane at all, and her lane is incredibly weak. She scales pretty well, but getting there is really difficult, and I don't think that these changes are enough to compensate for that late game. Frankly speaking, I don't know why they made these changes, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe going rapid recharge on 3 and playing around your alt works now for some reason, but I don't think it will. Placebo nerf on Doorman. Drifter got some quality of life changes here, where you can now act out of rend 0.2 seconds faster, and being that it comes out 0.1 second faster, that means that you're going to be hitting the melee portion a decent amount more. The cooldown's nice. I don't know how this changes what it lines up with item-wise, but off the top of my head, I think this might put it almost directly in line with the melee items. I should probably done research before that, but it's fine. This heal is also like relevant. This is a 33% increase. Maybe you go healing booster on him now. That's like a pretty substantial heal. Dynamo is getting 25 extra health from rejuvenating aura in lane. Well, at all stages, but lane is where the 25 matters. Grey Talon's still going to be good. Maybe slightly less oppressive. I kind of like the spot Grey Talon's in right now. I don't think that he's as crazy as he was, like, the patch prior. I think that he can do a little bit ridiculous damage at times, and this might help. I assume it'll help. So, we'll see. Holiday was incredibly broken. These changes are nerfing to her damage and a little bit of the consistency, and it's 100% deserved. But what they should really do is remove the bounce pad stun, because I hate it. And that's it. These haze changes they're nice. They aren't bad. 2% bullet resist, that matters. 10% bullet life steal, that matters. But like, metal skin exists. Like, there's a reason that these hazes are going curse, right? Plated armor exists. Juggernaut exists. It's really difficult to function as haze, and I don't think these changes address that like at all. Ivy is already in a pretty good spot, in my opinion. Slight nerf to her spirit build. I meant slight buff to her spirit build, and a pretty big buff on the replicated healing. It went up from 52.5% to 65%, and this is not just a big buff to support, but it's also a big buff to gun because of the lifesteal. That healing really adds up. And the fact is that she's probably underplayed in that role right now. A lot of the people do go the more spirit or support styles, and I think that this is a meaningful buff to gun that people aren't recognizing. If you have Vamp Burst and Ricochet in a team fight, that's a lot of healing that you're giving to your teammates. Lash, these changes aren't massive, but they matter. Mainly the ground strike cooldown reduction. This helps his lane a bit, and the flog angle is going to let you hit it a lot more when you're closer, kind of. It's also better far away. It's just going to let you hit it more. These Mina changes, I don't want to call them placebo because little things, like they do add up. These alt changes are definitely placebo. It is 0.6 damage across the entire ultimate. Like, the whole channel is 0.6 damage more. Not 0.6 damage per bat, but 0.6 damage more for each stack you get. And it's 23 more damage across the whole ult when you have the 1 AP. I don't think this is really relevant. Once you get the max AP on the ult, it's doing way more damage than this buff is ever going to do. The range on Sanguine Retreat is cool, and the missing health increasing by 1 is it's whatever. I think Mina's in a pretty decent spot right now, so not overbuffing her is good. I just find it kind of weird, these changes. Mo is going to be a little bit more annoying because his Sandblasts are going to be coming out more, and they're going to slow you more. But I don't think this is going to push him over the edge. Since the boon reduction to health, the fact that they're buffing the combo thing, it kind of rewards the more aggressive style, and he's losing 200 health, and here he would be gaining 10 plus 35 at max level, so that's 45 per alt at max level. I don't know, he's probably going to break even on 4 alt kills in health, and then after 4 alt kills, he'll be higher than that. So, that's cool. I don't know, I don't think Mo's super oppressive. He has a really strong lane, and then he kind of just dies, because tanks don't really exist like him. Paige is getting a little bit stronger early with these bookworm changes, reducing the cooldown, and then the T1 on plot armor having a small fire rate increase. Nice QOL buff here, where now you can actually miss the rallying charge and get the cooldown reduction if it doesn't hit anything, or if it hits other things that aren't heroes. Because before it was, you hit a walker and then doesn't get the refund. This amp is something that I think people overlook. Her ult kind of chunks and heals a lot with the amp. So I don't know how much this really matters, this buff, but it is a notable part of her kit. Also, funny thing with Paradox, the move speed increase that you get on your 3 is a timescale increase, which it means a lot of weird stuff, but one of the things that it does do is it means that your heavy melee distance increases. So if you get a bunch of spirit, and you get crushing fists, and you press 3, and you heavy melee on Paradox, you go really far. It's funny. You have amp on your 1. That's great with melee. I'm just saying, melee Paradox, it's been a thing in the past, kinda. This buffs it. It's not a big buff, but it's buff. Pocket nerfs. I want to say I told you so. At the start of the year, I predicted that Pocket would get a 25% gun nerf at a minimum. And he has went from the second best gun in the game to now being on par with Mo and Krillgun, which is funny. Previously, he would have the best gun in the game, damage-wise, above Viper and everything, because he had 40% amp, he has the flat damage from his 2, and his gun's still going to hurt because of that. However, it is going to scale a substantial amount worse than it did 2 patches ago. And, this right here, 4.9 damage per bullet at max boons, what that means, or I guess it's not per bullet, but it's per shell, it's every bullet combined. What that means is that all of your damage that is being multiplied by fire rate and everything like that is this much lower at the base. So if you're multiplying something by 10, that's 50 damage. That adds up. Moving along to Rem. Pretty much, Rem's burst healing after the most recent change was very, very egregious. Your team would just blow up in healing. In late game team fights, you would heal everybody so much, your healing numbers would skyrocket. I don't think that this is enough of a nerf. I think that it's pretty ridiculous how much healing he gets on the burst heal portion. The healing per second reduction, this matters less because in late game fights, Rem was just jumping between teammates so much. It's going to matter for like, oh, you jump on your carry and now you sat on them to heal them up and they're getting a bit less. But in terms of like the egregious part of Rem Kit where he's just jumping between your teammates, healing everybody to full, this doesn't impact it enough. The helpers changes. This is a weird shift in that I don't really know why they did it. I think that the trooper buff moving to tier 2 is going to impact these new objectives, the Rift objective, and I don't think that the increased spirit resist at T3 really makes that much of a difference because the spirit resist was getting the most value in the later game fights anyways. We'll see how this goes, but I don't think this targeted like the key power that Rem has, which is that burst healing. 7 Ball got a slight buff, but the Storm Cloud is now substantially less burstier. It now takes an additional 2 seconds to expand, and the damage interval is increased. So you have slightly more time to get out of it before just getting bursted down immediately. And this is a massive change to Shiv. Spirit Shiv is pretty much dead. His 2 no longer does spirit damage. It now does melee damage. The Spirit Shred is reduced, which is a huge hit because the Spirit Shred for your team is crazy. And now he gets damage amp against that person. But removing a 2.8 spirit ratio from your kit just kills a spirit hero. I'm sorry. Any spirit hero that removes 2.8 ratio from your kit, they're just dead. Especially when you can only rely on knives now for spirit damage, and it's just removed by like 4 different things, If you just get debuff resistance, if you get divine barrier, if you get debuff remover, there's all these things that would just completely negate the knife build. I don't think that he exists as a spirit hero anymore. I think he's going to be much more of a gun melee bruiser, which is interesting because Shiv has always been very heavy into spirit, and I'm excited to see what builds emerge. But I'm pretty sure spirit is just dead. Like maybe you see spirit snatch, but from what I understand, when you use the dash, the first person hit gets the melee damage applied to them. So if you hit 4 people, you're not snatching 4 people, you're only snatching the first one, which is substantially worse than say like Calico when you hit and you're just getting the 4 stacks of snatch immediately. I'm excited to see where Shiv lands because this is a pretty massive change to the character. Vin is getting small buffs, but I don't think that the small buffs matter because Vin is just like the ultimate victim. Everybody targets her. Everybody loves to kill Vin, and there's like 6 different items that just make it so that Vin can't play the game. So late game, Vin's still going to be pretty weak. Early game, I think like it's fine. But mind you, I don't think like Vin should receive massive changes. I think that it's okay that she feels weak late game because she does a shit ton of damage. And doing that much damage in like a coordinated environment where you can kind of protect the Vin, I think that's cool and will lead to interesting developments. And I don't think that we should like make any massive changes to her. I just think that in solo queue, she's probably better off played in a more supporty role. Putting Scourge on people, Alk Fire, all that stuff. And everybody's playing her as a carry. Viscous nerf, well, I guess it's like a viscous small buff here. I don't think this really matters. Nerfing 0.1 splatter scaling is actually like technically, if you hit all 4 bounces, probably like a 0.2 splatter scaling nerf. But everybody has slightly less health, Uh, and realistically, the power of Splatter comes from just the range and how egregious the bounces are and everything. Items convey so much power as well. You know, you're getting Tank Buster or Reverb or Spirit Burn. This is not that crazy. You know, this is still fine, especially when the health is getting nerfed. Viper is in Spirit Viper specifically is in a really weird spot where early game Spirit Viper is just broken. She's OP. She does so much damage roaming around the map. Just hits you with your ult, hits you with the 2, you just pop. If you're at half health, you're just like you can't stay on the map with Viper there. Uh, the interesting thing is that her dagger has this cool spirit stacking mechanic and everything like that. But in reality, the only use case for that stacking is the bullet shred on towers and objectives and things. This charge time delay, you shoot them out pretty fast. But in actual PvP combat, like in team fights or anything like that, it just takes too long and is too inconsistent to like meaningfully stack. I would like to see it work. I just don't think in like the current Deadlock you really can get it to work. Also, lastly, Warden. His bullet has been nerfed once again. I think they really, really want Warden to be like the bruiser, the frontline, like hybrid damage dealer, not the premier carry that he's been played as for a long time. When you buff his shield like constantly, and you buff his ult, and you just keep nerfing his gun, it's clear they want Warden to be this kind of hybrid tank. Yeah, she can shoot his gun, but that's not like the primary reason he's there. And I think that's good for the hero. I think that's a good direction. I'm excited to see if we get more heroes like Warden that aren't exactly the best tank or the best damage and are in this middle ground, because I think that these heroes are kind of where Deadlock shines in terms of like fairness and things. But thanks for watching. I'm pretty sure that I flubbed up a bit a few times in here, but that's fine. Not taking this seriously anyways. Have a good day, everyone.